Cool. So what happened last time was I was working on, at the time I was calling it a running workflow, I think, and which was admittedly a crappy name. So I ended up going with something a little bit different. I should probably retweet this, but I ended up talking to Jamie, who's the guy that I'm working with on this project, and he and I sat down and I bet we spent an hour and a half just kind of hashing out the general shape of what this workflow feature was going to be inside of our application, because the problem that I was running into is I didn't want to wholesale make the decision and then run into a situation where I made something that was kind of stupid and I wasted a lot of time on it. So it's good to talk to people about these things. So we sat down for probably an hour and a half, sort of worked our way through this, and we had different ideas on things. And what we ended up coming up with is pretty cool, to be honest. Like, I enjoyed it quite a lot once we actually sort of figured it out. And that's really what I'm working on implementing now. So my previous live streams, we were working on a certain version of this feature. And then what we ended up doing, or I ended up doing after that, was kind of scrapping that entire branch, just sort of pushing that off onto something else. And now we're working on it a little bit differently. So instead of having a workflow and a workflow step, which is what I had previously called it, store those in the database, we now have a workflow template, which is actually what it should have been called to begin with. Like, it really didn't change. We just changed the name of it. And then it has many template steps because these are the things that we're going to repeat, but these go in the database and we end up taking these individual things and creating some structs from the information and then pumping these into timers inside of a workflow. And a workflow is going to be a process that's running for us. So that's where we sort of ran into some weird things here. But we figured out what we wanted to do that was slightly different than what we had originally thought, or what I had originally thought once I talked to Jamie anyway, was that we didn't necessarily need a type because all of them are going to basically be timers, but we wanted to have lifecycle events all the way down the chain. So something starts, finishes, gets paused, canceled, all those things. We want to fire off an event so that we can potentially let you, the user of Chronic, add something in there. And when something is canceled, you want to be notified. This could get real weird. Like if you had, I'm just coming up with this off the top of my head, but say a business wanted their entire company to utilize this as sort of a time tracking replacement in a way. Like they could have time tracking built into it, but then additionally, they could get reports sent to their, say, manager about things that got in the way. So if you had to, cancel the work that you were currently doing because you got pulled off to do something else, you could fire an event on that cancel that like ticks some sort of, I don't know, like counter in the cloud or iterates some number that says, I got distracted because of this. And that could be kind of helpful from a managerial standpoint. That's like probably the interesting ones. But yeah, that gets a little weird. I obviously am going to use it kind of just to keep myself accountable, but there are other ways that we could use it. So today we're going to continue working on a workflow. And the way that I've got it implemented thus far is we need to start working on the lifecycle events. Last time I worked on this, I implemented the gen server for the gen server functions for basically doing the state machine aspect. So converting from one thing to another and coming back. So if you want to pause, resume, cancel, these are going to map to the lifecycle events. Why am I scrolling so weird? Then that's going to take you in, and the back end is going to handle the various changes for these, but we're not doing anything exciting in here. So now it's kind of, we're going to be using the system timer process that we have already kind of designed. And since it kind of maps pretty closely, if we take a look at that one, we should be able to see that there's a start, there's a resume, and there's a pause. So cancel will be basically a pause. I don't think we're going to go in and introduce anything deeper in the stack here, but we will have the ability to actually go and cancel. And since these are more or less the same, we kind of just take the step that we have and pass this in there. And then we will have to do a few different things to where when somebody hits resume, this is going to have to go back and trigger an update. So currently we only have one sort of update function that happens, and that happens on tick always. So now we're going to have a tick that happens, which will then go through and do some various things, which I think where is that at exactly? Okay, it's right here. So it goes through and calls some stuff and sort of just triggers through the time. But we're going to have to add some callback functions in here to where it can call back to its parent. Yeah, so I think right here we have handle tick, doesn't apply, callback, where callback is the state. So this is going to be a little bit different because we're not going to use the, let me open up Dash because I don't exactly remember what apply does. But I know it just runs a function, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah, so it invokes the function with the given argument list. That makes sense. We're going to have to either give it a bunch of different ones or it's going to be a uniform kind of thing, which does make sense actually. So it'll have a uniform interface to where it can apply, let's say tick and back on the parent, which I guess won't be apply. It'll be sending. It'll send that back to the parent. And then we don't really have to, the timer will then never again have to worry about the complex nature of these particular things. So that'll be kind of nice. But for right now, we're going to basically ensure that we are, I guess, yeah, these are, man, this kind of sucks. These are sort of integration tests that we have to write here. But we're going to go into workflow test and we're going to see what we can come up with. So right now I have a bunch of these transitioning ones. So if I run these now, it's probably going to fail because the database isn't running. But yeah, let's see. This looks like it's running into, some issues with the database connection. So let's fix that. So I have some shorthand. DM is Docker machine. This is going to start my default machine. And then once that's finished, we can export some stuff and create some things. Taking longer than expected. This is kind of the downside of streaming and running a bunch of different things, including a simulator in the background. Takes quite a few resources on the computer. All right, it looks like that should be good to go. So if we come back over here, we have to eval to get those variables, and then we'll start our database. Cool. Okay, now we should be able to run our test again. There we go. So these are pretty fast because they don't have to interact with a database, which is really nice. Right, so our template is the database side of things, and we don't actually have any tests with that right now because it's literally just storing data, and we don't need to necessarily test that Ecto works. When we go to add some validation to that, then it'll be important that we actually add some tests around that. But for the time being, we're really trying to focus on the feature that is useful. And, databases are useful, but data storage is pretty common, something we do in literally every application we build, really. So we're fine doing it the way we're doing it right now. Whoops, what did I do? There we go. Okay, so we're going to put another describe in here, and we're going to call this workflow. We're just going to pick one of these to work on, which I think in this case is going to be, so start already picks the first one. And then we're going to want to go with probably pause. Let's do pause. That one makes sense. And I think this we'll just put it like this. So we want to state that it receives, I guess, causes a Oh, I didn't even think about that. This doesn't even have to go back to the timer. That's way better than what I was thinking originally. The timer is what cares about the ticking, and it'll call back to the actual thing that's invoking it. But in this particular case, we run into this neat thing where, since we have our own client-side functions for these with resume, pause, cancel, etc., we don't have to worry about like callbacks and stuff. It's just stuff we're going to handle. I'm honestly not even sure what we need to test here. We're almost to the point of integration. So what I had previously thought is, okay, I'll just implement the state machine side of things, and then from there we'll be able to make some modifications to actually get the things to trigger, which is basically what's going to happen right here. So inside of pause, this is going to find integrations for pause, really, for a given step, which is going to be the current step. And then it's going to have to run that. So integrations for step, and then we'll do something like integration.run, maybe. And man, that's actually looking pretty good. So this currently won't work, right? So current step. But this would be pretty cool. We give you a current step, and this could be integration for event. Then you pass it in the event name and the list. Ah, man, I'm really liking that. This could be pretty cool. So now we're going to have to make some modifications. Let's do describe workflow.pause. And then what we're actually going to test here is test invokes integration for pause on current step. It does put us in a spot where we need to actually have a current step that has an integration on it, which this concept doesn't exist yet in the system. So that puts us in a weird spot. I'm going to comment this out because I actually like how that code looks. But we're going to have to grab our template that we currently have. And then we don't have an integration module to actually work with yet, but it's something that we're going to need. So trying to decide whether or not I want to come up here and change our workflow template to have an integration on it. And if I show you this is kind of like if I sketch this out as a YAML, this is more or less what we're going to be going with here. So we have steps, have a name, has a couple different values on it, and then it has a different event types. And I have to figure out exactly how we want to structure these. For right now, we're going to assume that we can structure this like it's going to be just a struct. That's what we're going to work with. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this YAML essentially, and we're going to translate it directly into something here. So let's go ahead and see if I can do this up here. This might give us some issues, but we'll see. So in here, we're going to have tick. Which has, I don't know that the integrations key is necessary in this particular case because it's something that we already know. Like that's all we're working with. For right now, just to map to this, I'm going to keep it that way. But I really don't know that it's necessary. So this will take probably a function would be the thing that I would expect, but it might take a function and some arguments. So it might be better off if we gave it a list where it's the first part is, so in this case, we had this fake thing that was like Twilio, send SMS, and then we would have a second one that is a nested list here that's going to be something like I guess this would be use a tuple instead of a list because they're always going to be two. And then this would be the arguments, which, it's 867 5309. Goes in here. I'm not sure if I like this. I almost want to bring in Jamie because I think he's in the area so that we can kind of talk about it. But for right now, I think this could kind of work. Oh, nope. Here we go. It's not a list at all. Okay, so events is a thing. Whoop. What is this? Syntax before integrations. Code 442. Whatever. I can get behind this, I think. Yeah, that works for me. Okay, cool. So now this is going to be the one that's our current step. This will change a little bit about what the step that is generated looks like. So let's go ahead and come down here, and we're going to do, okay, PID, workflow start, template. And then we need to basically, what did I do wrong here? Ah, here we go. I'm missing the back end of my tuple. We need to make sure that we can run this, which is sort of a bummer because we already have something that doesn't work. So assuming that we pass in functions for these instead of, which, man, holy crap, I wrote pure Ruby that they didn't exactly know how to handle. If we just assume that this is going to take a function, then I think we're okay. It'll be a little bit different in terms of what actually comes out of it, I guess. But this is what we want. So let's go ahead, and this is going to take, I would think it's going to take the current state, which, how do you define this exactly? It's going to take function state. And, I'm not 100% sure how to do this in the setup block, but we're going to get it figured out. So let's just take and do a puts. I just want to make sure that something is happening. Okay, doesn't look like we have a syntax error. That's good. So the first part is a function. We should be good with that. Unfortunately, it doesn't know. All right, back to system timer test. It's a shame that we figured this stuff out like quite a while back. So function state send testpid. Ah, okay. Self-ticked. Oh, that's a good way of testing it. Okay, so we want to get our self. So we're going to say testpid self. And what we want to do here is do a receive, do after end. And so if this takes more than however much, receive a message. Not sure exactly what we want to put here. Paused. Okay, for right now, can I just assert data? Is that a thing? Let's see, before, oh crap. Not used to skinny rockets. I always do fat rockets and it's kind of frustrating. More syntax issues. Unexpected token end somewhere. Oh, there we go. Okay, no syntax errors. That's a net win there, a little bit of a positive. But I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to actually have to take this template and we're going to have to make this modification in a different spot. So let's go ahead and pull this down here. And this is going to go beforehand. But it's going to have to be, we're going to have to say steps is going to be template dot steps. And then we need to substitute out the first one. Template. Okay, so now we'll take what we've got up here, pull it back down, and make a modification, because what we need is we need specifically to have a function on here that's going to call back to the test PID. So we needed to have the test PID before we could move on. That makes sense. And now I think we're just going to copy what we've got down here. And within this, we can say send test PID paused. And we don't even know what state is going to be at the moment, but we're just going to assume that something gets passed into this function. I think that should be good for us too. I don't know what the syntax checker is going to do about this. Not really sure how it prefers to have this. All right, unexpected reach of end of line. Current expression invalid or incomplete. Send test bit. Do the thing. $125. Oh, okay. It's on a completely different section. That makes sense. Okay, now we have something that's being sent back to the test PID. We don't really need this random number in here. But every integration being a function and potential arguments, I think makes sense. Oh, right. Gotcha. This might be something like state and then ops, right? These are optional arguments, maybe? I don't know. For the time being, I think we're going to get rid of those. We're just going to say it's a tuple. A single tuple that, yeah. That should be good. Okay, we've got something to work with here. I think this will be fine. Except for we jacked up all kinds of Erlang stuff. That's fun. Workflow templates. Oh, whoops. It's because there is no events. So let's go. So we've got all of these things. This, man, this is kind of a drag because I assume this is going to be another database column. So we'll have events, and then those will have types. And we'll have to sort and filter those things. So integration. We're going to punt on this until I can chat with Jamie about what he wants to do. Because what I'm kind of thinking is that this integration bit right here, like this is going to turn into an integration template of some kind that's going to have a module maybe, and then its arguments. No. An integration takes a module, optional arguments, and it's always going to take the state, and then you tie it to a potential. What do you tie it to? You tie it to an event. So there's like a join table in there somewhere. That makes sense, right? Something like that. Let's spike this out. It's really hard to not kind of draw this stuff, but unfortunately I can't draw on stream. I need like a Wacom tablet so I can do some of that. But so for events, we're going to have, this might just be integrations instead. And then these will have something like type, or no, event, which makes sense. There we go. This is going to be like a database enum. maybe. Event, function, optional arguments. This will be useful for, this might be good as like a JSON array. Or an array column. It's been a while since I looked at the newer features of Postgres to see what we can kind of do there. But so this will be serialized function or reference to module function. And then optional arguments would be something that's useful for, say, they want it to, the Twilio. Let's go with the Twilio example again. Optional arguments would be like phone number. Could be an API key, phone number, and a message to send. If you wanted to, ping somebody with something when something happened. And that's cool because it could be like message to send could literally be a function at that point. You could have it be something that's templated, like you create a template and you're like, okay, pass in my state. And then maybe it parses that state, gives you some more information, and sends that off. I think that could be kind of cool. I could get behind that, I think. I don't really want to go and create, another database table while I'm working on this one test, because that tells me that we're kind of getting a little bit bloated and workflow is kind of turning into something a little bigger than I was hoping it was going to be right now. But I'm not sure that there's a great way to get around that. So if we run this right now, we get that Erlang being spit out. Anonymous function to workflow template struct. Workflow template step 4. Okay, it doesn't know how to handle that. Got it. So integrations. It's going to take a list. I think I have to do this, to be totally honest. Let's comment this out. Okay, so we're going to do mix, ecto, gen, migration, create integrations. Yes. Okay, go back to creating workflow template steps because I'm still learning about this stuff. I think we have our references in there. Yeah, we do. Cool. So create table, integrations. All right, time to check out Ecto's docs because there are some cool things in Postgres that I think we would like to use for this, but I'm not 100% sure on what those are. Field types. I guess we have to look at add. Column type ops. Oh, that's cool. How does that work? Elixir type, which is handled by the database. Okay. Let's just see if we can get that to work. I don't know what this is going to be. Like, I really am genuinely, I just want to see what this comes up with. Okay, and this is going to go to a workflow template step ID. So one thing about integrations, and I'm not sure that Jamie and I really talked about it, but we can't have them relying on one another. We can't have one integration that like it matters that it happens after a different integration. This is more like if you want something to happen when an event occurs, you can have multiple things happening, but you can't have them like need to be in sequential order. Or if you do, maybe that's one of those things down the line where we can have an integration that like is a list of integrations. That's a potential crazy idea, I suppose, but references, workflow template steps, okay. And then this is going to be add, what is this going to be? Map. I think it's time to do some Googling. Let's see here what we can come up with. Okay, so Elixir, Ecto, enum database type. Okay, looks like there's something that I can add to it. Add post status, null. Postgres type info. Okay, so looks like Ecto out of the box doesn't support it, but that's okay. We can eventually add that in if we want. I really am curious what's going to happen with the integration that we already have with this event map thing. So we're going to, let's say, add event. It's just going to be a string. And then this is going to be the callback, which is going to be a map. Or the, we should call back. It's not really a callback, is it? It's function. Probably shouldn't call it function. Okay, it's callback for right now because I can't think of a better name besides function. Okay, there we go. Let's save it. Mix, Ecto, migrate. See what happens. Is there a way for me to... mix help. Just trying to see if there's a good way for me to connect to my database. Like if there's something like an Ecto console. Rolls back, displays. Load. I think I want to dump it just so I can see what it does. Mix, Ecto, dump. Priv repo structure.sql. Okay, let's see what it ended up coming up with for integrations. Callback. Oh, nice. That's awesome. So yeah, it knows to store it as a JSON binary column, and then presumably it will deconstruct that afterwards. Let's go ahead and make sure that that works. But we first have to make a model for this. Man, that's really exciting that we can just have it be a map. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and look up workflow template step. I basically just want to see where this is at. So we're gonna have this be a lib chronic integration dot, not RB. So chronic schema is a module that Jamie wrote that basically gives us some helper functions for anytime we're working with Ecto related objects. Okay, so we had field, that was event, it's a string. And then we also had field of callback, which is a map, which we're going to say defaults to this, maybe? That way we always get something. And then it's going to belongs to workflow template, chronic, workflow template step. Whoops. And then additionally over here, we're going to have to adjust this to have a has many integrations, chronic integration. Okay, and then we need the change set bit here. And I think that might be all we need. Let's go back to, whoop, not sure what I just did. We're going to go ahead and go back into our workflow test where we were messing with this stuff and go back to the bottom, uncomment this. And now we're going to have integrations, and this is going to be integration. So event is going to be pause. And callback is going to be exactly what we just had. Maybe we do something like that to where it's like callback function. And then options maybe, and that's going to be nothing. I think I like that. So we're going to have to do a little bit of sorting later on to make sure that things kind of come together with this so that we organize things based on the type that they have and going from there. But depending on what kind of error we get with this, it might not be too bad. Cannot expand struct integration, workflow test 106. Oh, right. We didn't put that up here. Okay, cool. Workflow test 125. Doesn't use pit. Oh, okay, right. So now we do workflow, pause, PID, assert received paused data, and then assert data. So let's go ahead. Still not doing anything, and that makes sense. So inside of workflow, let's go ahead. We're going to want our current step. And then I think we are going to want integration.invoke for event, maybe. Pause, current step. Oh, that's like a single. Okay. That's kind of cool. Oh, it's going to need the state and whatnot too, I think. For right now, I think we're just going to do current step dot integrations. And then maybe we'll do the kind of fine-grained version of it here. So this will be something like enum filter. Just going to take step or int integration dot event Okay. So that'll give us everything that has the pause event. And then, did I forget to close it? Did I miss the close? No? Why did it go so far out? That's weird. Okay, and then from here, we're going to, that gives us each integration back. So I guess we would call apply at that point, and then pass it the state, maybe. All right, let's see what happens. This should presumably fail for something weird going on here. Okay. Integrations not found in. Okay, that makes sense. So workflow step, we have to map, which goes ahead and takes some of these things, but skips the other things. So we want to do integrations as one of these things. But before we can do that, we need to go ahead and go to workflow. Whoops, whoa. Workflow template step. Test. And in this case, we're going to, the expected is probably going to be integrations, be that. So it should fail. Still fails. Because the association is not loaded. Let's go ahead and do it this way. Sweet. That works. Kind of spoof it a little bit, but that is okay. So we're going to assume at any point in here that the integration is going to be loaded. And I'm not sure if there's one of those. Let's go back in there. Merge. Take, merge. It might be one of those things like eventually we don't want to have any of the ecto business going on. So we might have a to map on integration, which will go and just return us the very simple version of it, which, I mean, shouldn't be that hard in the grand scheme of things since we have the JSON column. But yeah, this gives us something to work with. So let's go ahead and go back into our workflow test. And let's see what happens when we run this now. So we're still getting an issue, but that's okay. Enumerable not implemented for association not loaded. Wait, is this? Oh, I don't think it's the same test that's failing. What test is this? State machine trans goes to pause. Okay. Returns current active step. Right. Okay, so we do have to come up here and add some stuff. So right now we're going to pretend that there just aren't any integrations, which means this is something we're going to want to do. We're going to want to add that to map so that we can get it looking eventually something like this. This should fix 2 more of the tests though, I think. Or not at all. Argument error, workflow 84, handle cast. Workflow 84. Okay, so we do have an expected in here that's not right because integrations isn't what we thought. So yeah, there should be integrations. So that should fix that test at least. Let's go see what we're doing on line 84. 84. Apply. Okay. I do want to inspect what we've got here. There should be no unused return values. Okay. I do want to make sure that I'm not just completely comparisons. Okay, there is a comparison operator. I'm just being dumb. So that should be... Oh, whoops, I didn't actually pipe that in there properly. Let's back this up. Continue to apply things. Argument error still. Apply state. So we'll pipe this to IO inspect, see what we get. Okay, so we're getting the integration, which has a callback, which is a function. Callback oh, crap. Duh. That actually makes sense. So we have everything that we have here. We're filtering to make sure that it's only the right one, right? But then additionally, we want to map on this. And we're going to take the integration again. And then from here, we want to just grab the callback. Yeah, and actually, I mean, if we're really being, we can just do it this way. We can apply the integration callback function, and then we're also going to give it the state and the integration callback options. I just want to see if that works. Okay, I think we got a slightly different anonymous function. Okay, so what is this exactly? Function in, okay. Not quite what I was going for. It's quite the message to read. I think, do we have to do that? Does that work? It's not a syntax error, so that gives us an or it is. Invalid for expression or format. Or capture remaining at least one argument. Integration callback function. Okay. We're just going to see what this is. Oops, wrong one. Okay, let's see how we do this. Call server apply. So we have a function. We have some arguments. Oh, it requires arguments. That is the difference. Let's try to pipe to apply here. We'll do it after the fact. So it for sure requires something. We're just going to give it nothing at the time for the time being. Oh, we got a different error. What did I just do? Man, I mangled everything right there. So we were expecting something different than what we got. So we were expecting function to return past state. Expected a function, got array of something. Got array of functions. Okay, so what? Why is it an array? Enum map. Integrations. So for some reason, it thinks that this is more than it is. So we should have apply function, because this should happen on every item in the list. Compilation error, missing something. Oh, I see it. With arity 1 called with no arguments. Oh, it expects state. Right. Okay. Hey, we're making progress. We need to figure out why that's doesn't have what we expect it to have, but progress. Oh yeah, dude. There we go. This is ugly as hell, but we successfully got it to have a list of integrations and go through and call them. So that's pretty neat. I think that's where we call it. Maybe tomorrow, if I don't do it tonight, that's when I'll go through and I'll do some refactoring for this. But I got to get to work, so it's a good stopping point. But we actually managed to do some things here. I'm trying to think. Just looking at what we got here, we have callback functions. So that returns a map. Every integration. That we want callback function. Yeah, I really don't know why it thinks that everything. It thinks every integration has a list of functions. Well, whatever. I'll figure that out. But thank you for tuning in, anybody who stopped by, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning.